Welcome back. This is Occupier Caitlin in the room where one of the morning workshops will be held. There are several of them. There are 2 workshop session times, but there are several workshops that attendees can choose from. What I intend to do is just give you a little sample of each one, so I'll hit one for a few minutes, and then I will go into another one and sit in there. Just adjusting my monopod because I'm sticking it in my purse so that I can do a little hands-free. I'll be shooting pictures like I did in opener, and then I will upload those to Facebook later. There's probably about 50, 75 in here. This one is work and wages, raising the minimum wage and fight for 15. And the other one says, the second one that will be held in here is work and wages 2, fair scheduling, earned sick days, and other reforms. Those will be the 2 that will be held in this room. Sorry about that. The folder that I'm also carrying slid on the floor when I tried to put it on the chair. Good? Just waiting for this one to get started. This one is supposed to start in a minute or two. I believe the three that are sitting here on this bench will be the presenters. Go ahead. I'm just standing here. I'm streaming. It's showtime.
Good morning. How's everyone this morning? Ready to talk about wages and work? Yeah. All right. Sorry if you came to see Serena. She's sick. So I'm Ashley Golden, and I'm from Missouri Jobs and Justice. And we are here to talk about wages and work. Jobs and Justice nationally has been working on increasing wages for working families for a really long time. We are a group of labor, faith, and community who work together across sector and successfully to raise wages pretty much. And today we are going to talk with Larry Michael, who is a nationally recognized economist and the president of the Economic Policy Institute, or EPI, as some of us know. He's a co-author of The State of Working America. All right, he said stop it there. But he writes a lot about job and quality trends here in the U.S. And then we have John Noble, who's a leader with Iowa CCI, who's been deeply involved in local campaigns with raising wages. He's a student who has been in the front of the lines of campaigns and knows what it takes to win the fight for 15 here in Iowa. And
you know what? I know.
And those victories mean for working men and women here. So without further ado, we're going to start this off with John talking about his campaign.
Hi, I'm John Noble. I'm a student. I'm a member of Iowa CCI. And I'm pissed off. I'm really mad about what's going on in Iowa, what's been going on in Iowa, what continues to go on in Iowa. And here's a student. I've seen friends. I go to Drake, literally across the street. I've seen friends who have been crushed by student debt, who can't pay their way out. When I worked at Iowa CCI last semester, I talked to fast food workers once a week who were working 3 or 4 jobs and were telling me I still can't pay my rent. And that is absurd. That is 100% absurd. I don't understand why we even think that. I do understand why we think it's acceptable. It's because we don't care about poor and working people in this country, but it's absurd. And we've seen that absurdity. And the absurdity has come from our lawmakers here in Iowa. Our lawmakers have failed us. Our lawmakers fail us when they put forward a bill at the State House calling for 1010, which we know isn't enough, and then before that bill even gets anywhere, they've already compromised with themselves to bring it down to 875. So the best they can give us is $1.50, and that is a slap in the face to people who I talk to who cannot afford childcare, who cannot afford to feed their kids. That is more than a slap in the face. That is complete and utter disrespect for someone's human dignity, for someone's life. And I think the dignity aspect and the moral aspect are two areas that the Fight for 15 has really latched onto, and something that I think we need to continue talking about. So the two areas I want to talk about are the importance of a moral framework when we're talking about a living wage, because $15 an hour is a living wage. We're talking about wages that people can live on. We're not talking about, and some people say it's exorbitant. I'm like, why can't people take a vacation? You know what I mean? Yeah. That's the thing. We're talking about dignity, and we're talking about the importance of this fight being local, because this is a deeply, deeply localized fight. And so when we're talking about the dignity aspect of things, the importance of that is that we're talking about the fact that people, like I said, cannot pay their rent, that people cannot pay for food. And when we overlook the dignity aspect of this,
Someone is going to
we
try to do
overlook
something
the
about that
humanity
noise.
of the people who are working at 725, who are working at these poverty wages. And I think that's why it's really important that a central part of our framework, we can talk, and we will, about how this is good economics, and this is all this, and this is all this things, but the key is that we're talking about human beings here. Yeah. That's where we're starting from. We're starting with people's stories, we're starting with what people need as human beings, and people need comfort, people need security, and people need to have a good time. Since when did being a low-wage worker mean you didn't get to have a good time, that you don't get to have fun, that you don't get to go out with your friends on a Saturday night? We have stripped from low-wage workers in this country the right to be human. Yes. And that is absolutely horrifying. So what's been going on here in Iowa is Iowa CCI has been working since 2012 with state legislators to pass and draft minimum wage bills. Like I said, that's when the Democrats threw us 1010, and we knew that wasn't good enough, and then they bumped it down to 875. So I think a key here is we have to keep our goal high. If you want a dog, you ask for a pony, because if you ask for a dog, you're going to get a fish. And they want to give us less than that. They don't want to give us anything. So we have to keep really strong pressure on lawmakers in a way that's asking these goals. We have to shift away from this idea that 15 is exorbitant. We have to shift away from this idea that 15 is too much, that it's absurd, that it's all these different things. 15 is our minimum we're asking for. We're asking for a minimum wage. That's what we want. And that's great. If they want to throw us other stuff, we'll take it, but we're not going to stop until we get that, until we get something that's a living wage. So I think that's our first key, is we're starting from a radical ask. We're demanding 15. We're starting high. And when we did midterm elections here, we canvassed thousands of low-income households here in Polk County. We polled people on the necessity for a raise in the minimum wage. And guess what people who were making the minimum wage told us? Do you think they told us, oh, we're fine, we'll go to 725? No. They said, of course, and we knew this. Working people have known this for a long time. We have to bring this to the attention of people in the state house who are wealthy, who don't know this. We have to bring people's stories. So in April of 2015, Iowa launched our local Fight for 15 chapter here, aligned with the national movement and with SEIU. We coordinated efforts with labor groups, grassroots organizations to raise this awareness about income inequality. I think another key important thing with the Fight for 15 with living wage initiatives is building partnerships. And most importantly, we get a lot of groups, especially around caucus time, who are coming in here, political groups who like to step in and say, oh, we're here, we like living wages, and then as soon as the candidate's elected, they're gone. And CCI's been here for 40 years, and we're not going anywhere, and we take advantage of caucus season, but that's not the primary focus of our work. And I think when we get so bogged down in these high attention areas, where the media is, all these different things, That's where the trouble is. When we have these astroturf groups that like to pretend like they have grassroots initiatives, but have never gone to a McDonald's and talked to a worker, have never gone out and talked to the people and asked what they want. The demands in our organization and in our group are coming from the workers. We're talking to workers about what they want, how they want to handle these things. We are providing them with the tools they need to get what they want done. I think I see way too many groups out here, really established groups that come in and say, oh, I'm going to do this for workers, and I'm going to do this for workers. And it's like, no. You're going to give workers the tools to do for themselves. And I think that's an important part of our framework that oftentimes really gets overlooked in a lot of these organizations. So we're also talking about the fact that we have done bi-weekly demonstrations outside local fast food chains, things like Monster 15, really busy areas of town. So it's high visibility. That's another thing you're going to want. It's super high visibility. We've also submitted dozens of opinion pieces, letters to the editor. Des Moines Register just came out with their editorial board just came out with in favor of raising the minimum wage. So here's the thing, when a group or a prominent group comes out in favor of raising the wage in your area and they don't give a number, you take advantage of that narrative. You take that narrative and you control it. When the Des Moines Register says, oh, let's raise the wage, hooray, we're super behind it, you have people write in the next day, letters to the editor, editorial saying like, yes, let's raise the wage and let's make it a living wage. So a big important part is keeping media attention on. Another important part within the moral framework, we just engaged faith leaders across the state of Iowa. So there's an op-ed that will be coming out in the Des Moines Register soon, and 53 individual faith leaders across the state of Iowa and 9 faith institutions. So that's denominations. We have a Hindu temple here up in Madrid. Have all signed on explicitly to fight for $15 an hour, better working conditions. So when you have clear asks and when you have a moral framework, they can't ignore you. You know what I mean? You're there, and there's an appeal there, I think, to people within that moral framework, and that's why it's so important. So some of the reasons that we've got here, why it's crucial, it's good to have numbers behind you, which we'll talk about too. So a single individual in Iowa needs $11 an hour to make ends meet. Again, that's absolute minimum. A single parent with 1 child needs $19 an hour to make ends meet in Iowa. And a single parent with 2 children needs to be making $25 an hour to make ends meet on 1 job. So when we're talking about this, these numbers, these things we're talking about, and putting people's faces with it, because this isn't an abstract economic exercise. This isn't about, are we going to raise wages? What's that going to do? All this stuff. It's about real people. And I think people get really bored when we get by. I feel like I'm already crapping on the next presentation because it's important. The numbers are. But when we have numbers without faces, then that allows us to continue erasing the workers who are the core of this movement and who are doing the fighting. And I think it's also important for us to speak from our own stories, from where we are. So, when I talk about why Fight 15 is important for me, I talk about why it's important as a student. Workers talk about why it's important as a fast food worker. So I think with that moral framework, with those strong demands, and with high media visibility and confrontational actions, that's how we're going to get things done. That's how we wanted to get things done in Iowa, and that's how we can get things done across the country. So thank you.
I did have a question. That Fight for 15, was that 15? Because my employer uses the argument, well, you make this much per hour, but I include benefits in that. So my hourly wage is 11, but my benefits, medical and vision are covered. Does Fight for 15 have anything to do with benefits?
So we are talking about a minimum wage outside of benefits. Benefits are necessary. Benefits are important, and that's where our Better Working Conditions Act comes into it too. We're talking about a $15 an hour hourly wage. Benefits are, we can't have it without those benefits as well, but we're talking about the hourly wage. Yeah.
So now John's going to come up and talk about the good old number side of this thing.
Try to make it interesting, huh? So I'm Larry Michelle. Yes, I am an economist. And thank you for walking up 5 flights.
Yes.
Thank you for being willing to listen to an economist. You know the definition of an economist. Somebody that's good at math but didn't have enough personality to become an accountant. Now my son's an accountant. He tells me I can't make that joke anymore. I want to paint the broader picture. I think 2016 is a wages moment. It's one I've been waiting for and working for many decades. And I went to become an economist 40 years ago because I was interested in who got what and why. And back then, I thought there was a maldistribution of income, wealth, and power. Things have gotten a lot worse since then. So I've been waiting a long time for this moment. And this moment is coming about courtesy of all the people who are out there on the streets fighting for higher wages. How many people here have been involved in some local campaign around wages? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for helping to make this moment. How do I know it's a moment? Well, we have presidential candidates of both parties explicitly talking about the problem of wage stagnation. I'm talking about the Republicans as well as the Democrats. The only people who deny that there's problems with wages are 3 or 4 right-wing think tanks in New York and Washington who still stick to there's not really a problem. But their candidates are talking about the fact that the bottom 90% have not seen a wage increase in 10 years. So we're past the moment where we have to validate that there's a problem. We're really into what can be done about it, okay? And I'm going to tell you what I think needs to be done about it. We can, in Q&A, talk about what the conservatives are going to claim is going to fix things, which won't really fix things. Which is actually you already know. Because the only thing they know about is cut taxes, deregulate, bash unions, take away things from poor people who need them. So they're just going to try to find a way to link those things to all of a sudden somehow that's going to raise wages, which it won't. Now, you all know that wages are important because it's common sense, but I, as a researcher, have to prove that. And it's easy to prove because what people buy, families support themselves based on their wages. That just makes common sense. There's a lot of people go into a lot of other dynamics, but that's the bottom line. I mean, what a family gets to spend depends on how many people in the family are working, how many hours a year they get to work, weeks, months, whether they're unemployed, and what they get paid on the job per hour. Okay, so that's wages. And that's even true, even though people don't think about it, for the bottom 20%. The households in the bottom 20% get 70% of their income from either wages or EITC, which you'll get.
EITC
right?
is an
So the vast
income
majority of
tax
everybody's
credit.
income, except if you're at the upper 1% or top 0.1%, comes from wages. So it follows that if we want to get rid of poverty, if we want to build the middle class, we have to improve wages. And most of the politicians, in my experience, have not wanted to go there. And they don't want to go there because to talk about wages is to talk about power in the workplace, power in the marketplace, the relationship between employers and employees. And, a lot of people want to just be friends with everybody. They don't want to get into something where it's a conflict. That is not a win-win situation. What the employers are winning is what we're losing, right? So, that's about changing the system, as George was saying. So let me just tell you briefly a few illustrations of what I think has happened. The first is that inequality rate stagnation really started in the 1970s, late 70s. Since then, the hourly productivity which is the output of goods and services per hour worked, has risen around 70%. And the hourly compensation, wages and benefits of a typical worker, someone who makes more than half of the workforce but less than half, the median, went up around 9%. So the typical person up 9%, the pie grew 70%. Why is that important? It's important because people in this country are beat down. They have low expectations. They have been sold that somehow we can't have what we need because the economy isn't doing well enough to provide it for us. But the fact is, we have produced oodles, that's a very technical economic term, oodles and oodles of cash, wealth, wages, and income. The only problem we have had is it has not gone to the vast majority. We, in the future, by all projections, will be creating lots of income and wealth and wages. And the main question is, are we going to build a system that is going to allow the vast majority to move ahead or not? It is a totally political question. It's a matter of, is the system going to be designed for us, or will it continue to be designed for them? Okay? We need it to be for us. How bad is it? Well, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it's the DADI Worship Act that provides a lot of the data, said that between 2007, the beginning of the recession, and now, the bottom 87% of workers have seen stagnant or falling wages. 80% have seen stagnant or falling compensation, including wages and benefits. That's like pretty much everybody. Okay? Now, it didn't start with the recession. There's been broadly based wage and compensation stagnation since 2002, which was the bottom of the recession before the one we just got out of. It's the George W. Bush tech bubble recession, right? 2002 was the start of the recovery. So what's happened during the last recovery, it's happened during the downturn, 2007, 2009, and from 2009 to now. For college graduates, as well as high school graduates, for white collar workers, as well as blue collar workers, for men, for women, blacks, Hispanics, whites, whatever, everybody. So this is broad based in a way that hasn't really been the case, I think, in the entire U.S. history. The wages have essentially been stagnant for the middle, 30 to 40 years, except for a short period of time in the late 90s, which was the exception. When I said that median workers' compensation grew 9% between 1979 and 2014, around 5%, 6-7% of that growth was all in the late 90s. Outside of that, basically nothing. Okay. Now, along with that, we have, the historic race and gender inequities. Racial inequities have been present for the entire past 40 years. In the 60s and 70s, we actually were closing the gap between blacks and whites. That stopped on the wage front in the 80s. So we have a problem of stagnant wages across the board, with black workers earning less and being equally stagnant or actually seeing a further fall in wages. We have women who have always made less than men do some catching up over this period of time. But around half of the catching up is because men's wages fell, not because women's wages rose. And in the last 12 years, women's wages haven't gone anywhere. Okay, so we have a socialist sharing economy. Everybody is sharing in misery, except for the top 1% and the top 0.1%. And let me just say that redistribution from everybody to the top 1%, if that hadn't happened, everybody's wage would have doubled to the bottom 90%. So in Washington, other places, it's sort of like impolite to talk about the top 1%. Well, why do we want to focus on that? Why don't we focus on getting everybody to go to college? Well, the reason we focus on them is because the same place that's why people rob banks. That's where the money is. That's where the money is. And it's not unseemly. The money that they have taken in the top 1% is money that didn't go to the rest of us. That's because why they got more money is not associated with their creating a bigger pot. Okay? Executives who now make 300 times a typical worker and used to make 28 times a typical worker in 1978, they didn't make their companies that much more to value, right? Executive pay grows twice as much as profits. You know, twice as much as the stock prices went up. They're just rated from the rest of us. Okay, so why did all this happen? Let me just say one thing that it's not. The conventional wisdom has been, and you're going to hear it all the time from the Republicans. You hear it some of the time from Democrats, but not as much as it used to. It's skills. Okay, the impolite way to say it is you're too effing dumb to earn a good wage. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't want to provide everyone a better schooling. Schools should be improved. People should be given a chance to get ahead. But education is more to me about opportunity and giving people who start in a certain place to get to another place when they grow up. Nothing about education is going to make wages not stagnant over the next 10 years, right? We really have a situation where wages are stagnant for college grads. People who are graduating college are taking jobs that pay less than their older brother, sister, cousin did when they graduated college. They are less likely to have benefits. People who graduate college work as interns for free. For free. Now, you can't argue that something that is supposed to be vastly in demand by employers that they just can't get enough from. Right? That's the explanation for why skills are problem with wages, right? Employers can't get enough of the skilled workers, so they bid up their wages, right? So the wages of the higher wage workers go up and wages of other people go down. That can't possibly be true. Because we know over the last 15 years, all the jobs that have been created have been in the bottom third of the wage distribution, right? We're not creating high-wage, high-skilled jobs that are going unfilled, okay? If employers having a hard time finding college graduates, they wouldn't get people to work for free, right? I mean, that's just basic economics that you all understand. If there's a shortage of oil, you can't go to the gas station and get oil, your gas for free. It doesn't work. Okay, so what is the story? The story is one of power. It's about policy choices that have been made on behalf of those with the most income, wealth, and power. It's not from any economic deity. It's not from some big thing that happened. It's not from globalization and technological changes, the explanation they like to give you, because they think that those things are things we neither can nor should change. The reason there are wage problems are because of choices that have been made that can and should be changed. And globalization is one of them. God didn't create globalization. You know, that's not why they have all those trade treaties. God didn't say, go have NAFTA, go let China in. Don't worry about China manipulating its currency. Don't worry about whether workers in third world countries have any rights on the job. They didn't say that. She didn't say that. Yeah. What is it that did it? Well, first is to keep too many people unemployed. Okay? When there's high unemployment, it's easy for employers to get somebody and they don't have to give you a good wage. When unemployment goes down, wages go up. When unemployment goes down, wages go up more for low wage workers than middle wage workers. More for middle wage workers than high wage workers. So it's our benefit that we get unemployment really low. And that's why there's another workshop going on right now that the Federal Reserve Board policy.
I'm going to leave this
We
one,
need to make
and I'm
sure they
going to
don't
go
raise
to
interest
the
rates
other one.
and stop the recovery. We have always seen significant growth.
Is there another one on this floor, or is it that one the only one?
I think that's the only one.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to go down the steps.
Because the elevator was from the city.
Let's see if there's one on this floor. No, doesn't look like I can go anywhere on this floor. So I'm going to go down to 3. Looks like the 4th floor is under construction. So I'm going to go from here. Okay.
Can we say boo to that? All right. But we know that this plan is something that we must and can benefit from, right? And it will benefit all Kentuckians if we make that choice. That's why KFTC has launched the Empower Kentucky project. Empower Kentucky is KFTC's campaign to engage people from all walks of life in conversations about their ideas and vision for a brighter energy future. This year, our organization has created public forums. We're providing and conducting listening sessions, house parties, workshops, and scores of interviews to listen and learn. Then together, we will write our own state plan. Amen? The Empower Kentucky plan will lay out the ways to make our communities more livable, strengthen our economy, and support a just transition for workers and communities while meeting or exceeding EPA's target for pollution reduction. This moment we're in right now presents us the opportunity to build healthier communities and a healthier democracy by voting, lobbying our local and legislative leaders, sharing our stories, supporting the Clean Power Plan, and lobbying them, our leaders, to support the Clean Power Plan, right? Being inclusive by sharing stories, and creating space where everyone's voice is heard. The Empower Kentucky project is part of a long-term organizing strategy to build the political will necessary for a clean energy transition and one that is good for all people and communities. The more we understand about the Clean Power Plan, we know it's essential for frontline people and communities to be deeply involved in this process. Kentucky could, but should not comply with the plan by simply shifting from burning coal to burning more natural gas and burning our forests to generate electricity.
That's right.
Kentucky could, but should not comply with the plan just by requiring our utilities and ratepayers to pay penalties for excessive pollution through a cap and trade system. Or Kentucky could, and we believe should, comply with the Clean Power Plan
by investing in homegrown solutions and a just transition for communities and workers, by significantly expanding energy efficiency and renewable energy, especially in communities mostly affected by pollution and economic distress. It's up to us, all of us, and we have the power here. It's up to us to ensure that we understand the choices that we face and have the opportunity to share solutions that can benefit our lives, health, and economic well-being. Amen?
Amen.
When I say let's get, you say started. Let's get.
Started.
Let's get.
Started.
When I say put families, you say first. Put families.
First.
Put families.
First.
When I say build power, you say now. Build power.
Now.
Build power.
Now.
Let's get.
Started.
Build power.
Now.
Put families.
First.
Put families.
First.
Build power.
Now.
So let's get
Started.
All right. Thank you for your time. And thank you for your attention.
Change clean energy, the struggle for people on the planet, and then in the session 2, money and politics will be in this room.
What we thought, since this is a large group, first of all, let me ask, how many, could you raise your hand if you're from Iowa? Whoa. Are folks from any other states want to call out?
Illinois.
Okay. Illinois, Wisconsin, Missouri, Kentucky, and DC.
That's right.
Someone said
What we
DC
thought we
should be
would
a
do,
state.
if it's okay with you, is to just sort of find, sitting right next to you, you have to get up and move around, 2 or 3 or 4 people, and talk to you for about 10 minutes, say your name, your organization, and what
This
issues
will
that
take too
you're
much time, so I need to go skip it. Is there another one on this floor, or is it just this one?
There's one over this way.
Okay. Okay.
The nurturing that she brings, because she loved on my children while I did those 8 hours of work and 4 hours of class. So that type of lesson was a lifelong lesson. But as a graduate student here today, working on my master's, I'm no longer eligible for child care assistance. Where the brokenness comes in is that subsidies, the guidelines that govern child care assistance does not actually meet up with the needs of the people who are getting services.
So let's take a comment here, and then we're going to move into an exercise where we can begin to talk about what we begin to do and how do we imagine a new system of child care.
In the spirit of the child care system today, one of the things that we do, and I do this exercise I do with people, you think about everybody who is a part of, who is the person that gives your coffee at Starbucks, who is the crossing guard, who is the person at the news station, and everything that you do every day. When you think about how child care functions, I just wanted to embed this in your mind. Think about your daily route to work, whether you're on the train, whether you're on the bus or you drive your car. What do you do? What would happen if that person's child care provider, or all those persons' child care providers did not open up that day? So just something to leave you with. Think about that on your way to work. How do you get there? What do you do?
You don't go, right? You don't end up going.
I'm glad you bring that up, because something I've been thinking about is like we need to organize a national strike day where child care providers just stop working, because then it forces parents to go on strike as well, and it raises awareness to the whole issue.
In South Korea, I think it was a couple of months ago, where the child care workers went on strike.
And Quebec, and they did it in Quebec in 2004.
But here's the reality, and it's unfortunate. If something were to happen like that, maybe I'm about to say no, they wouldn't care. The unfortunate part is that we women are expected to take care of it. I'm a single parent. And childcare has closed down on me a couple of times because my childcare provider was sick from the kids that were brought there sick because their parents had to go to work, so they couldn't stay home to watch the kids. So you put the kids to childcare sick, and the childcare provider got sick, and so childcare was closed. And you know, my job said, okay, well, you can stay home, but we're gonna mark that as an occurrence towards you. So then I was reprimanded.
Yeah, and I completely understand that those things exist, but I think like if something like that were to happen, it needs to be in line with like a national push for like paid sick days. They had those in Seattle. They talked about it on Seattle City Council passed paid sick days. So if you're sick, you get paid for those days. Like we need a national campaign to address all of those issues. Because it's now 2016. Like we need to better take care of our society, and to do that, you have to adapt to more socialist ideas.
Absolutely, and I think that that's where we want to get. I mean, we all recognize that from this conversation that the current childcare system in this country is far from equitable. And a lot of it has to do with the lack of adequate investments. I mean, we were talking about earlier, we have a subsidy program that is supposed to provide for eligible children, and it's only funded to provide subsidies for about 12% of eligible children. What about the rest? And how do we begin to push for those investments so that at a minimum, those children that are eligible for these subsidies can actually tap into them, that these families can tap into them. And that's actually something that is being talked about and reauthorized right now, right? The community development block grants that are going to have a huge impact on funding at the state level. And some of you are working on that, right? So, as we think about this system and how inequitable it is and all the challenges that we heard from, Keisha and from those of you that are experiencing this, why don't we begin to move into this idea that George talked about this morning in the plenary, about thinking big, right? Let's not just settle for the CDBG money. Yes. That's just one piece of the puzzle. Let's not just settle for universal pre-K funding, because that's just one piece of the puzzle. So I want you all to pair up with somebody for a minute or two and share with each other what's your big idea to transform this healthcare system would be. And right now, because it's a brainstorm, feel free to share what you think.
I'm going to go down another floor. Again, I'm going to go down the steps because the elevator would kill my signal. So I'm going to see if I can duck into at least one more. I'm just giving you a flavor of what these workshops are about. They may be in different stages or styles of presentation. So that was about child care that I was just in. It's retirement security, followed by tax policy in this one. Or most important election. And this is Fed Up. And what can the Fed do for you? So I'm going to give you a little lesson of each one of these.
they made like $8 an hour, this was 20 something years ago. I know now they probably only make about maybe 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. Okay.
I was making $11.35 in my last CNA job,
Yeah,
so
I'm just saying,
you're right on
in
that.
Iowa, I agree they should be paid $25. I mean, it's a demanding job, it is hard work, you're lifting. How can the government counteract that with which I believe it should be done, but how can the government kind of counteract the price of, the wage? Because, if that goes up, then the nursing homes are gonna raise their prices, and then government's gonna have to pay more money, so how can they do that besides just raising that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like a central question, not just for care workers, but in our country, right? We see so it's one of the fundamental questions in income inequality that we were talking about earlier this morning. The reality is we have a very small slice of the American population, the 1% that are making billions of dollars in the richest nation in the world. We have way too many people that are only making, $8 an hour, $6 an hour, $9 an hour. And I think that there are, I'm sure a lot of smart folks that are here and all around the room have different ideas on how we're going to be able to really shift our system to be one that really values care work and values people who play all kinds of important roles in our country and in our economy, but aren't being paid enough to live a decent life. We've certainly worked on the cost issue a lot. I mean, I think a lot of times folks want to figure out, how do we target pharmaceutical companies more effectively, other ways that we can create where we get the money from for cost savings. Fundamentally, I think for us, we think some kind of long-term care system is that's injecting more money into the public sector is how we're going to be able to raise those wages. Right now, it's not possible. We need to figure out those funding streams.
Cool. We have time, excuse me, for a couple more questions at the end. But for now, we're gonna have you guys turn to a partner.
They are going to do a small discussion, so I'm going to duck into this one.
So the Federal Open Market Committee is 19 people. 19 people meet every 6 weeks to determine the direction of the economy. We have 100 senators. How many representatives do we have? Right? 19 people decide the direction of the economy. All right? 19. Now and this is who they are. 7 come from the Board of Governors in D.C., and 12 come from regional bank presidents. There's one in Kansas City, St. Louis, Minneapolis, Chicago, across the country. There's 12 of them, right? So that's who those 19 people are. So on this side, on the Board of Governors, the president appoints these 7 people to 14-year terms. Okay? The idea is it's like the Supreme Court, right? They should not be political. They should be have longer terms and insulated from politics, right? That's the idea. We all know how insulated, because the Supreme Court is completely apolitical. And here's the thing. President Obama has 2 vacant spots here. So there's actually only 5 people from the Board of Governors there. And some people have said that this is President Obama's biggest mistake of his 2 terms is not appointing someone that would be a friend to workers, not appointing 2 people that would be a friend to workers to the Board of Governors. Okay? So that's, out of the 19, there's 7 spots, you've got 5 people. Has he appointed anyone? So he has named 2 people, but they have yet to go through the Senate. He just named them in the last 2 or 3 months, but they've yet to go through the Senate confirmation process, and they probably won't make it. They won't make it. They won't, it won't happen. No one that he's appointed is on there. Janet Yellen is the chair of the Federal Reserve, and Barack Obama appointed her. So these 12 spots, right, are of those Fed
locations
presidents,
on the
how are
map.
they
It's hard to
chosen?
see from
They're
where I'm
chosen
sitting.
by a board
They
composed
are
of 9 members, right?
Federal
So think of
Reserve
these 9
branches.
people. You've got the Senate and the Congress, right? We talked about how many people are in the Senate and the Congress. These are only 19 people. Those 19, and these are only 12 of them, right? These 12, there's only 9 people that get to vote on each of those 12 people, okay? Only 9 people get to vote in that election. Who are they? So they're split up into 3 classes, A, B, and C. Class A, chosen by the banks of the region to represent the banks. Class B, chosen by the banks to represent the
What?
Class C, chosen by the Board of Governors to represent the public.
My dupa.
That's how it works. These are the people who get to vote. So this is your electorate. This is the electorate that gets to decide the direction of their country. So that's the way it should be. You should have across the country 12 times 9, 72 board members that represent the public and 36 board members that represent the banks. So what do you think it really looks like? In reality, we've got 2 board members from labor organizations. 2. And we've got 9 board members from nonprofits. And those nonprofits are like the Rockefeller Foundation. They're not Iowa CCI. They're not, right?
Nonprofit, my
technically
dupa.
nonprofits. And then we've got 97 from banks and corporations. This is the electorate that gets to decide the direction of the economy. That is the electorate. 97 out of 108. Okay?
That ain't right.
That ain't right.
Symbols representing the division of groups that are part of
The one sitting on the money.
the
That's a
Fed
good
boards.
point, right? So here's some of the Class B and C spots that are supposed to represent the public. These are some of our public representatives. Great public servants like Chevron. and
Those are
Comcast,
corporations.
right?
Corporations are represented.
So these are the people that are supposed to represent us. And people like Darden that own Olive Garden and are some of the most virulent anti-minimum wage funders across the country, and they get to decide the balance of power between the 1% and workers. These companies that thrive off of paying low wages get to decide. And there's only 2 labor representatives across the system. So this is what it looks like, right? This is ultimately like this is what the most important economic policymaker in the country, this is how they're set up. And the question about public and private, you know what? No one really knows, right? So the Board of Governors is subject to FOIA requests, federal
Freedom of information.
requests, but the regional banks aren't, because those regional banks are made up of banks from the region, and they actually are appointed by banks from the region. And the Board of Governors gets to choose some of the board members, but they're not public. It's like a quasi-public, quasi-private organization, and no one knows where the lines are, because there hasn't been a ton of attention and litigation around it.
And very little challenge.
Yeah.
They don't want us to know.
Yeah. So there has been like a couple minor changes from the Dodd-Frank was the most recent time it was changed, but this is the basic structure as it was set up. And actually, this is an interesting piece of information. The people who pushed strongest for a central bank were actually farmers across the Midwest, because they were drowning in debt from bankers who, like East Coast bankers, who were not denying them credit, charging them insane amounts of loans, and they wanted to set up a central bank that was completely publicly controlled. They wanted that oversight. They wanted it to be no bankers on the boards. They wanted it to be all public representatives, real public representatives. But in 1913, when the negotiations happened, this is the compromise that they actually came up with. Okay?
Congress, this has been this since its inception.
Yes. And so I just want to tell you, like, what kind of outcomes did this system produce? So out of those 12, there were actually, in 2015, there were 3 vacancies in Philadelphia, Dallas, and Minneapolis. So in Philadelphia, they were looking for an appointment. This guy, Patrick Parker, he was on the board, and he was actually on the board to choose the next president. He was on the search committee. And then he stepped down and got chosen himself. All right? That's how this works. And he comes from Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs.
And then in Dallas, they hired a search firm to look for their next president. And that private search firm chose someone from their board of directors to be the next president. And he comes from Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs.
And then in Minneapolis, they chose Neil Kashkari. He's a Republican. He ran as a Republican in California, and he oversaw the TARP bailout. And he also comes from Goldman Sachs. 3 vacancies, 3 spots from Goldman Sachs. And this is not. I'm not talking about 3 representatives, or not even 3 senators. This is 3 people on in a system with only 19 people, right? Out of 12 regional boards, 4 people come from Goldman Sachs.
They're not paid, are they?
Huh?
They're not paid, are they?
Big money. Big money.
They are paid, but they're probably going to get paid way more once they leave.
Yeah.
That's what happens. Once they leave, Ben Bernanke, who was the head of the Fed chair, was the Fed chair before Janet Yellen, he was an academic. Now he works for PIMCO, one of the biggest financial firms in the world, and he's making his money. That's what you do. Richard Fisher was a hedge fund manager. He was making money. He was a previous president of Dallas. Now he works for Barclays Bank, a bank that was under international indictment for rigging interest rates. Right? This is a revolving door.
They rigged the labor interest rate.
I'm not sure. It's probably
Mid-6.
Huh?
Mid-6 figures.
Mid-6 figures. That's what I would guess.
A little less than
Yeah, about time. Okay. So I'm just gonna skip to it. So this is a huge undertaking. So this is a huge undertaking. So the question is, how do we influence it? Like Derek talked about, we've done a couple of things. We crashed their party in Jacksonville, Wyoming. They all meet, all the central bankers from around the world, all these people meet in the farthest away place possible where there are no people, in the middle of Wyoming. And we went there. We brought 100 of our folks there wearing these t-shirts, and we confronted them there. Right? That's one way.
Ooh, that would have been fun.
Another way is we shift the narrative. We've only been around for 18 months as a campaign.
Wow.
We've gotten over 100 press hits.
Wow.
In huge papers, Wall Street Journal,
Yeah.
New York Times, Washington Post.
International press.
International press.
And one of the things is the first year we went, we only had about 13 of us, organizers and members, and we just showed up with signs and those shirts, and we got a lot of press. The next year we brought 100 people, and we got a lot more press. So we are making an impact in terms of bringing up, uplifting this issue for people to understand and know about it.
And the other thing is, before we started this campaign, we didn't know we didn't have a precedent. We didn't know if they would shut us out, if they would completely ignore us, or what they would do. But what happened was, we met with 11 out of the 12 regional presidents, and we met with Janet Yellen and all the presidents. We are going to meet with Janet Yellen again, and we have their ear. These are people who come from the banking industry, whose friends are bankers, who are appointed by bankers, and who are surrounded by bankers, and we are forcing them to come face to face with working people and people of color who their decisions actually affect.
Yep.
So that's another way that we're doing this. So, and then the third way that we're going to do, because we're at time, we're going to make visionary demands of the Fed to actually invest in our communities. There's interesting legal opportunities that are there for us. The Fed bailed out Wall Street. A lot of you know that. The Fed bailed out Wall Street. It's time for them to bail out Main Street. So in the next session, we're going to brainstorm together about how the Fed can potentially help our communities. It's fantastic.
Scary.
Yeah, what's that?
Interest rate.
Oh, interest rates are low, yes, that's important. That question in the back there about interest rates have been low.
Yeah.
It's true, interest rates have been low, and it's not like all of a sudden everything has changed, right? There's a lot of, like all of this, there's a lot of complicated reasons. The Fed is not a panacea. The interest rates is not gonna solve all of our problems. We need to work on all of the barriers that our folks have to getting employment. This is not going to solve everything, but raising interest rates doesn't help. Raising interest rates does not have an upside for working people. So interest rates are low, and we have not yet seen all the gains that we want, but it's like a car that's idling, right? We've had that analogy up there of the car. The wheels are spinning on the ice, and all of a sudden we gain traction, and then they want to slam on the brakes. Like, now's not the time to slam on the brakes. We need to start getting those wage gains, start getting those job gains.
So, I mean, another thing with interest rates, they've been low for a while, but we're just starting to see wage growth. We're just starting to see it. And then the jobs that have been lost, when they say jobs are coming back, they pay less, they are temporary, they are service-oriented jobs, they are not the quality jobs that were lost.
What is the possibility of just getting rid of them?
Someone
I mean,
asked
that's a bigger
about
question.
getting rid of the
I
Fed
think
altogether.
I think that's like a big philosophical. We can like rap about that later. That's a whole other.
With all these oversight, congressional committees and people that sit and supposed to oversee governmental agencies.
Yeah.
And when I sat in my economics accounting class, my head was spinning when I'm seeing all this information. Why does our government, who's supposed to we the people, for the people, allow all this crap to take place?
Money.
That's the main problem, man. We have all these oversight committees, finance committees, who's supposed to make sure that the banks aren't redlining, like in my community where you can't get a loan, or I'm paying higher insurance than the people 20 miles away. Why do they allow this?
Because they can be bought.
I think that's $1 million question, or $1 trillion question, actually.
He made a comment about the jobs that are coming back are not the good jobs that we lost. The single most effective thing you can do is stop offshoring, and you do that by quit buying stuff made out of the country, whether it's a Toyota that's made in Kentucky and the profits are sent to Japan, or it's clothing that you buy that was made in China. Now, they've learned about boycotting China, so now they're having stuff made in Nicaragua, Jordan, Pakistan. So you have to read the label, and you want to buy made in the USA.
Yes.
It doesn't help to have good paying jobs if there aren't enough of them.
So, like, I mean, I think this goes to your point over there. Interest rates in the Fed isn't going to solve everything. We need to buy locally. We need to, we need unions. We need to start organizing more. We need to stop incarcerating our youth. We need to do all of these things. This is just a big piece of it, right? It's not everything, it's a big piece.
And now you guys need to move to the next part.
Thank you.
The topic was white
Somebody adjust the thermostat? We got a big draft in here now.
It could be on maybe the windows have air gaps.
Well, but it was comfortable when we first came, and then all of a sudden there was a draft.
Well, maybe. That, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna archive this segment and then I'm gonna go up to the 5th floor, work my way back down again, just like I did. So there's a few minutes in between, so I'll do that and I'll be back in a few minutes.